Look what I just bought. I'm afraid that if I move too fast, I'll startle it and it'll run away from me. But look, isn't it magnificent? Model Land by Tyra Banks. One of the worst celebrity books out there. And I bought it for $6. I can't wait to read this and rip it apart to smithereens. Yes, my town just got a new secondhand bookstore. So I'm gonna buy books and save money. No guilt. Just more passive consumerism, I guess. But guys, welcome to my first edition. Are they pronounced the same? Anyways, welcome to my first video of my Friday, aka recent reads. Instead of doing monthly wrap-ups, where I tend to forget everything I read, I'm gonna do a every week wrap-up, because I read pretty fast. Not to brag, only if the book's good. I mean, Model Land may take me a whole year to finish. I mean, it's a chunky book too, oh my gosh, over 550 pages. Dang, Tyra, working it, girl, slaying. But it's January 5th. This is gonna go up in 2 days, as proper of a Friday reads. And I've already read 3 books. I'm currently reading 2 right now. An audiobook for The City We Became, which I am loving so far. It's a little crazy in the beginning, but it's a good type of energetic, frantic crazy. There's so much momentum and drive in the book, and just so much charm already. We have multiple people, POVs in the book. In the first one introduced, the one from the prologue, he's nameless, but I would die for him. I love him. And I'm also about to read. I'm literally on page 1. It's The Bear and the Nightingale, which I am very hyped to read because I'm ready for some light fantasy and folklore vibes. But to tell you guys what I've read so far, I read Clara, I DNF'd Klara and the Sun. Going into this book, I had no idea what it was about, and that's typically how I stumble into books. I'm like, ooh, that looks like a pretty cover, or, ooh, I see this, in the thumbnails of YouTube videos all the time, I'll just pick it up, and I don't look at, the summary, the author, the genre, and that gets me into a lot of trouble, but oh well, we learn, we grow. But Klara and the Sun, now, I could get into, putting the Goodreads summary into my own words, or maybe even the Wikipedia article into my own words. But I'm going to tell you, how the book starts out, and we're going to work our way into the kind of absentee world building. I mean, I only got 150 pages into it, and it's a short story, but I don't know, there wasn't a lot of things explained and not anything about our situation and the world itself that grabbed me. But in the world of Klara and the Sun, it seems like the population of humans as a whole is just very secluded. The people just tend to stick to their screens. Even the school system is isolated, learning at home. So it's much harder for kids to go out and make friends for some reason. Why it's like that, I didn't get to that part yet. Well, not yet. I'm not going to finish the book. That's why it's a DNF. So why the world is so isolated like this, I don't know. I mean, is it just COVID many years into the future and it just never goes away? I hope not. Gosh, that's bleak. And this is just a new culture of remote learning, distant learning forever. I mean, I was homeschooled, so I'm fine with it. But these kids are having hard times, going out and making friends, socializing. So companies have developed AFs, which stands for artificial friends. You can go to a store, buy a swanky new robot for your kid, one who's human enough to interact with, and your kid will get to develop personalities and charm and conversation skills I clearly don't have. Basically, it's like a practice playmate. Our little robot Klara, she is one of these AFs, and she's a little bit different from everyone else. She is far more observant, and she just loves looking out the window, outside of her storefront. She likes observing people. She likes following the sun as it arcs across the sky. But she is desperately longing for some little sweet girl to come pick her up from the store so she can have a kid. Well, not you know, she's not a mom. She doesn't want a kid. She wants to have a playmate kid. You get me. That's basically where the book starts off. Following the way Klara makes these very keen observations and how she stands out even amidst like newer AF models that are more advanced than her. And eventually that time does come when this little girl, Josie, like sees Klara in the window. She's like, oh, that's the AF for me. That's the one I want. And it takes like a long time for her to finally like purchase Klara. Is that a spoiler? No, it's not, because it's fairly like obvious just by the way Klara's talking about her in a past tense sort of way, like looking back on memories, that yeah, this is the kid she's gonna end up with. It's pretty obvious. But it takes a long time and a lot of like semi-betrayal before Josie actually makes the purchase of Klara. But in that time, we get to see how Klara describes things. And this is the thing that made me DNF the book. Klara is not human, which I get. And because she's not human, she wouldn't make the same like observations as we would, which makes sense again. But because she's using different terms to describe things in a futuristic world where everything could just be completely different in terms of descriptions, it's so hard to tell what she's actually talking about. I'm gonna have to throw up a screenshot on my laptop when I get to editing this video. It's over here now. It should be. My editor is paying attention. Because like in 3 instances of this book, Klara would just describe these things called boxes that are obviously not regular boxes. And I wouldn't know what the heck she is talking about. I thought that the boxes, at least to my little brain, were just like the patterns that the shadows made on the floor. But further on in the book, and I don't have a screenshot for this because I had already returned the book to the library, and the sample from Goodreads didn't have like enough pages to get me to these other 2 points. I knew they did the same thing with the boxes again, but at a dinner party at Josie's house. Again, those stupid boxes show up, and Klara observes how like, oh, the little boys are grouped together in one box and how it's like flickering like a sickly yellow, and how the other girls are like in another box. And I'm like, so they're not shadows? Then I started thinking that maybe these are like cubicles, like office cubicles. But then Klara and Josie's mom go off to see a waterfall, because Clara's never seen a waterfall before. And again, one of those stupid boxes in there, and somehow the giant waterfall is in a box. I don't know what these boxes are. Are they simulations then? That confused the heck out of me. I am not a reader who needs like a lot of descriptions of like my sceneries and stuff. So when you throw in really confusing descriptions, it throws me for a loop. So besides how it was written, it also just felt kind of really detached for me. Like I wasn't interested in Klara's journey, tales, her adventures at all. I really dislike Josie. Like yes, she's a sick little girl, bless her little heart, but she's also really flaky. I do not like her mood swings and how she'll like treat Klara like a sister and then instantly like just treat her like an object in front of other people in parties. And that's part of like her character development per se for Josie, because she notices that when she's in front of people, because of like the expectations placed on her, she realizes like, oh, I become a different person in order to impress other people. I do this because I think this is how they want me to act. It doesn't mean I like who you turn into, girl. I mean, I understand, but I do not condone. There was another guy named Scrub in the book, which put that stupid song in my head and it would not leave my head. I don't want no scrubs. Scrub is a guy who can't get no love for me. And back to the world building. Maybe I completely blanked on this. I don't know how I did. But I was reading like the first 30 pages of Klara and the Sun, and for some reason I had the urge to just check like the Wikipedia summary of this book. In the Wikipedia summary, it starts out like explaining the technology and how these kids are considered to be lifted. I don't know what that means in this book. I'm just going to pretend it means like genetically enhanced. I could be so wrong, don't quote me on that, but these kids are different from like us, like our current generation, and how kids who are not lifted are like second-class citizens and looked down upon. Then in the Wikipedia article, it talks about like how the kids are more isolated, they're learning at home, and the circumstances that cause that. And when I was reading that, I'm like, did I completely miss that in the book? So I'm assuming it's set up in the middle, where everything explained like why society is like this, but I DNF'd it in the beginning, so I don't know what to say about the world building. It could be fantastic, but for the first like 20%, no thank you. Do you hear that airplane? Bunch of rude people ruining my video. Oh, guess what? I work at a gym, and apparently my gym is like a hotspot for really popular gaming YouTubers. Like, I'm not going to say their names because they deserve their privacy and stuff like that, but they are big names. Like, they got 10 million subscribers or more. Today, one of the personal trainers at the gym, he sidles up to me and he's like, Casey, is that Logan Paul? And I give him a look and I'm like, it can't be. It's not. So we like sneak over around the corner and we look at him and I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe that is Logan Paul. Turns out, no, it wasn't. But this dude is a YouTuber, and he's a gamer, and he has 11 million subscribers. So it's cool. Pretty dope. Maybe I should tell, like, my coworkers that I, too, am a pretty famous YouTuber. So yeah, Clara and the Sun, it didn't have any appeal for me. I felt like I was reading I felt like I was watching an episode of The Twilight Zone. You know that episode where, like, all the mannequins come alive and stuff? That's what I thought this book was going for at first, because I didn't know what the summary was and the plot was and what Clara was, so I just thought she was a mannequin for, like, half of the first chapter until they explained what an AF is. Next up, we got my most recent read that I literally finished a couple hours ago. It's a thriller called The Last Thing He Told Me. This book is about Hannah. She is a wood turner, which is pretty dope. I always like it when characters have really hands-on jobs and they create things. Carpenters, wood turners, people who bring antiques back to life. That always held just like a sort of charm for me. So Hannah makes her own furniture and eventually she marries this awesome guy named Owen, and Owen has a 16-year-old daughter named Bailey. Bailey is about as likable as a bucket of ornery crabs. Maniacal crabs who's constantly pinching you and pinching others. She's not likable at all, which made part of this book really hard to read. I gave it a 2 stars. Because this book, it has the sort of tension you would expect from, teenage daughter and the stepmom, Hannah, who has intruded upon her life. But there's even more drama because Owen goes missing. Yeah, turns out the company he works for is called The Shop. It's like an electronics company. Well, they did some fraudulent things, made some claims that couldn't be verified, lied like Theranos did, kind of just like Theranos actually, misled the stockholders. And so now he's on the run. He leaves a big heap of money for his daughter Bailey, and he leaves one single note for his new wife. It says, protect her, meaning of course, protect my daughter Bailey. So Hannah's head is all in a tizzy, like, oh my gosh, I have this potentially dirty money in my kitchen. My husband, he's gone missing. His teenage daughter is crying all over my couch. I don't know what to do. There's U.S. Marshals coming to my door. Police are calling. All my neighbors hate me because they invested in my husband's creepy company. Yeah, so she's out to get the truth about what happened. She's bringing her stepdaughter with her. It sounds pretty fine to begin with. I typically like thrillers that have a little bit of business intrigue. If you like that too, I really highly recommend Escape Room by Megan Golden, I think. It's one of my favorite thrillers, and actually has very little to do with an escape room. It's actually an elevator. But for me, the book had a semi-interesting setup. It's kind of like a quest for me. Oh, we have to go find Owen, and I don't like quests at all, so that it wouldn't really grab my attention. I just picked this up because I like the cover. Again, I never read the summaries. But the thing is that it never had an exciting moment to it. The climax of this book is basically 2 people talking their feelings out and coming to an agreement, and that's it. That's the end of the tension. That's not what I want in a thriller. Hannah as a character, the main character, she's just okay. She's nothing really spectacular, nothing extraordinary, but she does like kind of exude a calm, chill presence that just makes her likable. And also, again, I just really liked her job as a wood turner. You know, like how in The Goldfinch, our guy, Theo, he like turns into like a guy who deals with antiques. That was interesting. I could go on just listening to Donna Tartt explain how to like get scratches off of mahogany legs. Bailey, again, was just an aggravating character. Like, a lot of this book is about, oh, we have to keep Bailey safe. Keep Bailey safe. Like, she's important. I mean, sure, as a human, she's important, but as an individual, oh. This is a book about a stepmom and a daughter bonding, and I never felt like they had that breakthrough moment. Like, Hannah is still the mom trying to, like, knock down her stepdaughter's defenses, relate to her, get her to trust her, and Bailey is still, like, standoffish to her. And Bailey has a lot to do with the actual plot in this book. Because, based on some very patchy memories from when she was like 3 or 4, Hannah and Bailey decide that her dad, Owen, might have fled to Austin, Texas. So most of this book is Hannah and Bailey walking around, and Hannah pointing out landmarks like, oh, Bailey, is this familiar? Bailey being like, nah, or yeah, and then following the next clue and the next clue based on a 3-year-old's memory. It was very far-fetched to me, but somehow it all worked out in the end. But can we talk about the dumb decisions in this book? Hannah, at a very tense moment where she makes a discovery on the internet, and this one discovery was like the one good, I take that back, the one thrill in the book. Like, it was a good, like, oh, that's why all this crap is happening. But it wasn't really a, ooh, what a twist. But after she makes this discovery on the internet, Hannah destroys her phone, which was dumb, because she was in her hotel bathroom when she destroyed the phone. However, when she leaves the bathroom, she realizes Bailey is missing. But, you can't call her now because you destroyed your phone. Honestly, if she would have waited until she opened her bathroom door just to, like, see if Bailey was still around, or if she just didn't feel like destroying her phone in that moment, the ending of this book wouldn't have happened. Everything would have been fine. Actually, I guess the book would have ended the exact same way, except it wouldn't have this, like, false moment of, like, oh, where's Bailey? Was she kidnapped? It didn't lead to anything exciting. Also, Bailey left the hotel room, and she knows that she's in particularly dangerous circumstances in Texas at this moment. So the fact that she left, I'm like, girl, you are dumber than a bag of soap. There were times also where, like, the writing would repeat itself. Like, not like line by line, word for word, but if I'm remembering it right, like, let's just say the car we're talking about is like a Honda Civic, which I'm in right now. My Honda Civic's name is Ferdinand. Let's just say the book says, Mallory parked her Honda Civic. She slammed the door shut on her Honda Civic. And I'm like, why are you repeating the car's brand back to back? Like, little things like that would happen all the time, and it would just irritate me. That was a kind of disappointing thriller read. It wasn't bad enough for a 1, but it wasn't even good enough for a 3, so I'm just gonna slide it into 2 stars. But next up we have a pretty funny book. It's called, you guys probably know it, it's Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune. I gave this book 3.5 stars, because I don't know which way to round. It's not meh enough for a 3, but it's not good enough for a 4, because there were some boring parts in this book, but overall it is very funny. This is about a cranky, curmudgeon, cantankerous lawyer named Wallace Price. I loved this man. He was just fed up with everything and everyone. He couldn't see the joy in anything. I related. We first open up with him, like, at his law firm, and he's just, like, metaphorically slamming his head against a wall. Because he's trying to fire this employee, but, like, every sentence he manages to get out, she interrupts, and she, like, interprets it as, oh, he's on my side. So it's just, like, this long chapter of misunderstandings until Wallace is finally like, lady, you are fired. Get out. So she's in tears. Wallace feels like a little better, like, we had a good discussion, but we finally, like, got to, like, the crux of it. It's time to move on to a brand new day tomorrow to make money at the firm, and then he dies. Heart attack. Boom. Main character dead. Deceased. Finito. But not yet. Because he has a little heart attack, and he wakes up at his own funeral, sitting as a ghost in the church pews, observing his own pallid corpse reclined in an open coffin, and there's only like 5 people besides himself at the funeral. Ain't that depressing? And it's from here on we meet a young reaper girl who takes Wallace on a journey to see his ferryman, a guy who will lead him to the next world, the afterlife, which lays underneath the whispering door. How is something underneath the door, not behind the door? You'll see. It's quite cool. It's a good visual image. I like the whole under the door thing. This book was very good at scenery and like just making a homey, welcoming vibe. And yes, it's about death. So it is kind of depressing at times, and I wanted to give up on all hope sometimes, but it was also very funny. There's a lot of moments like the seance that happened in the tea shop where I was at work. Don't tell my boss. But I had headphones on underneath all this hair, and I was working, and I was trying not to laugh because it was so funny, but I also didn't want my boss knowing I wasn't paying attention at work. So I was having issues, but I was also laughing inside. The banter was great. However, it had a lot of slow moments. And sometimes that slow just bordered right on boredom. Like, from that journey, from the church and the funeral to the tea shop where Hugo the ferryman is. Hugo, who is going to explain to Wallace what all is happening and why he's in this ghostly form and why he has a silver hook driven into his chest. It takes forever for Wallace. It takes forever for this man to get to the tea shop because every 5 steps he collapses on the ground and just cries about being dead. I understand it's kind of traumatic, but I'm bored. We have already discussed this, man. Yes, you're dead. Keep walking. The plot is that way. Please stop crying. So it took a long time for this book to actually begin. To get into the, oh, why is death like this in this book? And then we had like the actual boring moments where another ghost is teaching Wallace how to sit in a chair. It wasn't exciting. There is also romance in this book. The romance wasn't feeling it. Like, I understand half of it, because Wallace does fall in love with somebody, and I understand why he falls in love with them. Because in this moment of pure panic, he's dead, and the person he falls in love with has basically all the answers and is a welcoming, warm presence to him. Of course he's going to fall in love with him. However, the other person who falls equally as in love with Wallace, why do they love Wallace? Like, I honestly do not know why this person fell in love with Wallace. And this person also, they came across as almost too perfect, too mellow, even though this individual did suffer from a lot of panic attacks. And we were talked through, like, their childhood and what they feel during these panic attacks and why they happen. Well, that was really it. Like, beyond that, they were too perfect for a personality. And it kind of, I just thought of this, it felt like talking to your Alexa. Like, just a calm voice that tells you nice things when it knows the answer. But then half of the times, because like this book is about death, and you can't answer all the questions about death. So Wallace would ask this person like, oh, what happens when I cross beyond the door? Is it hell? Is it heaven? Is it something else? And the guy he's talking to, he's like, I don't know. Just like your Alexa when you ask it a crazy question. Like, Alexa, does my hair look good today? I don't have an opinion on that. The person Wallace falls in love with is literally like talking to your Alexa. Nice voice, no personality. But it was a very funny book. I was pleased with it, and I want to read the first book that the author wrote. It's something about a cerulean sea. I know it's popular. I just haven't gotten to it yet. And thank you guys so much for watching my first, weekly reviews, Friday reads, recent updates, whatever this is called. There's a Chick-fil-A right over there. You want me to get you something? Peach milkshake? A brownie? I got you. Type your address in the comments below and your credit card number with your PIN, social security, and email me a most recent picture of you and I'll send you a brownie. Thank you guys so much and stay ready, my friends.